We'll see spotlight colors on screen. Green, yellow for 10 seconds left, red for stop. Opening questions, you've got 90 seconds for those. Answering questions, you also have 90 seconds, other than simple yes or no questions. And for closing comments, 60 seconds. Rebuttals, which we hope are rare, will be 30 seconds. Rebuttal policy. We will only allow rebuttals if someone is directly criticized. Again, how to access interpretation. Look for the globe symbol at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it, click on the 3 dots and you should see it there. Everyone must choose a language, either English, Spanish, or Haitian Creole. I'll ask Gabriela Herrera to repeat those instructions again in Spanish.
Buenas noches, bienvenidos nuevamente a el foro de los 5 candidatos del distrito 5, de los 4 candidatos del distrito 5 y vamos a tener interpretación en español el día de hoy y vamos a poner la interpretación en unos momentos después de que mi compañera Esther Paul haga su mensaje en haitiano criollo haitiano y para llegar a la interpretación van a escoger por favor el globito y después que dice interpretación en la parte inferior de su pantalla, después van a escoger español. Y si no ven el globito, van a ver 3 puntitos y van a hacer clic en los 3 puntitos y ahí sí les va a salir que elijan su idioma y van a elegir español. Todo mundo tiene que elegir un idioma. Everybody has to select a language. Everybody. So you can hear the interpreters. Please don't forget. Thank you.
I'll ask Esther to now repeat those instructions in Haitian Creole.
Bonsoir encore. N'a fait nous songer que toute présentation ça qu'a fait là la fait en créole et que si nous besoin monde pour traduire pour nous pas un problème juste demander nous et puis connecter et puis cliquer sur bouton que au bas nous pour nous cliquer si nous besoin interprète pour interpréter pour nous. Donc si que nous interprète en créole haïtien et espagnol. Si que nous besoin Gabriela qui couvrir espagnol et puis moi-même qui est Esther Paul qui couvrir créole pour nous. Donc si que nous besoin de traduction, pas oublier pour nous cliquer sur bouton hein, et si nous pas poser des questions, non, si nous quitter le téléphone nous si nous pas quitter le téléphone sous mute à tout moment à un point privé, nous ca obligé retirer nos sous ligne parce que sinon n'a pas un pile bruit car un bruit derrière côté que cap nuisible pour moun cap là yo. Donc pour éviter trop interruption, n'a demandé nous pour nous quitter téléphone nous sous mute celle nous gagne pour nous parler, bien moun cap gagne pour parler pour parler. Donc c'est ce qu'on ça n'a fait li cliquer et puis si nous besoin interpréter haïtien cliquer sur les tout. Merci.
Merci. And now on to the forum. Let's spotlight the candidates and our first questioner.
The interpretation, please.
So now is when everyone needs to pick a language. Cece, I'm not hearing you.
I can't hear Cece. Can't hear you. I think she has to select.
Cece, you have to pick a language too.
Yes.
Do we all have to pick
Yes.
languages?
Yes. Everyone.
Yes.
Everyone has to pick a language. So if you're,
I don't see any place here to pick a language.
so you should see a
3 dots and there's nothing showing about languages.
pop-up comes up on your screen So you should see a pop-up on your screen.
Cece, you're talking, we can see your lips moving, but,
Yes, so now they can't hear you because now they're listening, they haven't chosen the language, so it's gonna be a challenge. And there's no chat. Is there a slide to show?
I just went back to the original. Everyone who can hear me, you must choose a language or you won't hear anything. So go to the globe icon at the bottom of your screen or find it in the 3 dots and you choose a language, even if it's English.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Can you all still hear me?
I can hear you now because
Oh, can I can hear you too, yeah.
you're on English.
Can you hear me? Okay, I can hear you all. All right, are we safe to move on? All right, we will start with our opening remarks.
Give me just a sec to find all the candidates and here we go. Hold on. I'm sorry that this is slower. There.
Awesome. Okay, first up with opening remarks, we have Jose Ruiz.
Okay, can you hear me? Am I being heard? All right, cool.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Before I introduce myself, I just want to acknowledge a 13-year-old that was killed last week. It was Sabian Ellis, and I want people to not forget who he is. We lost another person to senseless gun violence.
le monde qui était perdu la ville hier soir, là.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get used to the interpretation. But my name is Jose Ruiz, and I'm running for District 5 City Council. I decided to run for City Council because I don't believe our district is currently getting the representation it deserves. As a result, I believe the voters deserve a choice. Our community needs real leadership on the City Council. Someone committed to delivering for every resident and focus on leading our city into a successful future. And if I'm elected, I intend to do so. If I'm lucky enough to be elected to the next Boston City Council, I will work to end all the infighting that's happening in the City Council. I'm sorry, I have to beat myself and put this down. I've come from a lineage of community organizers. My mom was an organizer in the Spanish community for many, many years. I carried the baton from the South End into the Hyde Park and through my work career of 40 years. I'm happy to be running. I'm excited to be running. I want to be your city councilor, and I'm going to work to earn your vote. I hope I earn your vote. I hope I become your next city councilor. I'm Jose Ruiz.
Enrique Pepin.
Of course, thank you so much. Buenas noches, bonjour. My name is Enrique Pepin. I live in Rosendale with my 2 kids and my wife. And for me, the reason why I'm running is because I'm ready to give back to District 5. Back in 2009, my family was displaced from a Boston public housing unit. And we were getting ready to leave from Boston and move somewhere else. If it wasn't for one BHA employee that helped us stay in the city and find a new unit to live in Rosendale, we wouldn't be here. And I realized what one city employee can do for the city and for one family. And I said, I want to be part of that. So from a very young age, I became involved in public service. I interned for former City Councilor Tito Jackson, representing the residents of Roxbury. I was a Jamaica Plain neighborhood liaison for Mayor Walsh. And most recently, I was the director of neighborhood services for Mayor Root. In those 3 roles, I learned the importance of city services. I learned the values of connecting the residents to city government and teaching them how to get services, because that's what my family needed at that moment. Now I'm ready to be that for District 5, to be a voice of integrity, accountability, and transparency on the council, to work with my colleagues in the City Council chamber, to bring that stability back, and to make sure that the residents have a reliable counselor that they can depend on whenever they need something. My family valued that from that city worker, and that's what I want to be for the families of District 5. I ask for your support on September 12th. Thank you.
Jean-Claude Senon.
Good afternoon, everyone. If everybody can hear me, my name is Jean-Claude Sano. I want to make sure that I thank each and every one of you has put this together for this afternoon. A very exciting day for most of us because we are looking forward to the movement with Ward 18 and all the other co-sponsors who have really put this together. I have been in the District 5 for quite some time. I've been living in District 5 in and out for about 4 decades, and I have created at least 5 businesses within the district over the years. I have been the man at the forefront all the time in most political arena, engaging and really putting people into office. And I think it's time for some change. It's time for change because we're about to change a pattern in Boston politics. The game of entitlement, name recognitions, and the machine making decisions for the people. It's time for change. And that's the change that I'm about to bring. That's the change that I will bring. And that's the change the constituents are looking forward to. It's time, no matter where your family came from, the place that you were born, the foreign language that you speak, you deserve a place around the table of any local, state, or federal government. No seat belongs to anyone in particular in this group. The seats belongs to the people. So I'll be the candidate of the people, and I intend to do so like I've done it for several years, tirelessly. And it's a pleasure for me to be here with you. I'm excited.
Ricardo Arroyo.
Good evening, everybody. I want to begin by just thanking all of the sponsors for making this possible and for making sure that we had translation for this event tonight. That accessibility is incredibly important. I've had the honor and privilege of being your district counselor, the district counselor for the district that has raised me, Hyde Park, Mattapan, Rosendale. And when I first was elected, I promised to make sure that I was leading every day, making sure that everything that comes from my office is focused on achieving equitable results, making sure that we're centering justice, whether that's racial justice, economic justice, environmental justice, or social justice. And that approach has really delivered results. Together, we were able to bring about the Office of Police Accountability and Transparency. The very first act of my office was declaring racism a public health crisis and achieving millions of dollars in funding to address the ills of racism. We were able to advance important protections for renters in the form of rent stabilization. And we've done a number of different ordinances and home rule petitions related to climate justice and ensuring that we're leading forward Boston in a way that sets an example for the rest of the state and the country when it comes to environmental justice and protection. That approach has made it so that my office in this term alone is nearly 50% of all legislation put forward by the city council. We're responsible for nearly 50% of it. 2 pieces that I'll just highlight really briefly is a first of its kind municipal ordinance to protect trees and another first of its kind municipal ordinance to make sure that our hungry and those who are suffering from food insecurity have more access to resources. Together, we've done a lot to build a better Hyde Park, Mattapan, and Rosendale, and I look forward to continuing to serve you with your support. Thank you.
At this time, I'll hand it off to Marcia Kim Jackson from the West Fairmont Hill. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you. We can hear you. Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Marcia.
Beautiful.
So at this,
Marcia, but I can't hear Cecily.
Go ahead.
okay, let's see. How about now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I'll be handing it off to Marcia Kim Jackson from the
You're
West
muted,
Fairmont Hill,
Counselor
representing the Forum for
Arroyo.
Racial Equity via Educational Experiences in Hyde Park.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. So my question is, there's 2 questions I'll be leading, and we'll do the same protocol. We'll have each candidate having 90 seconds to answer the question. And I'll call on you to ask you to answer the question. The first question is this. Given your roles in the community, what do you see as the chief concerns of the different parts of District 5? So, excuse me, we have Mattapan, Hyde Park, and Rosendale, and we have a couple of streets in West Roxbury, but for the most part, those 3 communities, and please be specific about the different areas and their needs as you see them. So I'll start with Enrique for this question. Enrique, please, your response.
Marcia, thank you so much for, first of all, being part of the forum and for that question. We are very lucky to live in this district. District 5 has such a diverse and beautiful neighborhoods from Mattapan, Hyde Park, and Rosendale. And when we start with Rosendale, we look at a neighborhood that's booming. That Main Streets district in Rosendale, it's what's driving the neighborhood. It's driving the city. And we need to make sure that we are continuing to give that district its support its need to support the small businesses, but to also keep it affordable. Because what's happening is that the prices of rent are increasing in Rosendale day after day. I'm having an issue paying for rent myself. And what we have in Rosendale is a Boston Housing Authority that's immense. And we need to make sure that those residents get a better condition living, and we are giving them affordable rent so that they can stay in Rosendale, because we don't want them to get pushed out. Hyde Park has an amazing Main Streets district with the most diverse restaurants and small business owners that we have in the city. We need to highlight that more. We need to show that Hyde Park is a landing ground for residents from across the city and from different towns. I was at a Hyde Park Board of Trade meetings about a month ago, and someone had the brilliant idea to give us a shout out to those businesses. And then in Mattapan, we need to make sure that they are protected and that it is the neighborhood with the most minority homeowners. And we need to make sure that they continue to stay homeowners, because that is the beauty of Mattapan.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And thank you for staying on time. And let me just go now to Ricardo, Councilor Ricardo Arroyo.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Our district is one of the most diverse in the city and has a number of diverse issues and needs. When I think about the district as a whole, food insecurity is a problem throughout the entirety of that district, because we have a economic polarization within the city of Boston that is no different within our district. And so we have people who are quite well off, and then we have communities within those same neighborhoods that are really suffering from a lack of resources. A major part of my initiative and goal here as counselor has been making sure that neighborhoods that have been historically disenfranchised, like Mattapan, receive equitable resources when it comes to how city services are distributed and how city services are received, and making sure that we have open access. I came to be a counselor during COVID, and so part of that role meant making sure that we were making our forms available to all languages at the same time, making sure that resources were being brought to folks. In my office, made about 7,000 calls alone throughout the district to ensure that people receive those services as they needed them. I think we need real economic investment, which is one of the reasons why I supported and passed an increase in liquor licenses, or rather an advanced home rule petition to ensure that we could get that for both Hyde Park, Mattapan, and Rosendale. I think when we talk about development throughout the district and throughout the city, it's really important that we continue to develop affordable housing that's truly affordable for people to live in. I look at certain corridors like Washington Street, Mattapan, and Mattapan Hyde Park Ave, and Mattapan Blue Hill. And I think about all the transportation infrastructure changes we have to make, and I'll continue to advocate to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor, and also thank you for sticking to time. Jose Ruiz is our next voice we want to hear. Please.
Let's start with Mattapan. Mattapan at times feels forgotten, and from basic city services to services for youth to senior citizens are feeling they're not getting enough. So Mattapan needs and wants some more services. They don't want to be forgotten. Hyde Park, where I live, people feel that basic services, city services, aren't being received consistently. They also feel that they're not being heard. I've been knocking on a lot of doors, talking to a lot of folks, and I get a lot of, wow, I've yet to have anyone knock on my door in the last couple of campaigns, so they're happy to see me. Rosendale, beautiful. They have issues with traffic. They have issues with rent. People want to stay in their neighborhoods. And I agree with the previous two that we have to address rent issues and how do we keep people here.
Thank you so much. And finished under time. Awesome. Thank you. Jean-Claude Saint-On. Thank you.
Well, I'm the only candidate. So, Lord have mercy. Am I all right? Am I on?
We can hear you. Yes.
Okay. I'm the only candidate that lives in all three segments of the district. I have started, when I first arrived here in this country in Mattapan, I've started a family in Hyde Park, and I've also lived in Rosendale. So I know it pretty well. But like Ruiz have said earlier, I think the kid that has been left behind has been Mattapan. There's no issue about it. It's so unfortunate Mattapan never had a district city council that came from Mattapan itself. So I'm hoping to be that person who's certainly going to help build the bridge for all the inequities that has been going on for the longest. And if you all remember, Mattapan used to be called the murder pan. And today, since they are coming up with gentrifications. They want to kick all the residents out for some reason or another with the new complex that's coming up and so on and so forth. Rent is really skyrocketing. And you have a migrant community that is so strong in Mattapan, so Mattapan needs a lot of help. So is Hyde Park, because the bridge, it's all the complaints that I heard this week, it's all about the bridge. Everyone that I knock their door, it's about the bridge. Why 2025? People have been suffering, businesses have been closed, and we are saying resources needs to come to these people so they can survive, and it's not coming. So in other words, I'll be the unifier, the person who's going to unify and bring this district together with harmony and services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean-Claude. Okay, we're doing really great here for time. Let me just get to my second question, which is this. Again, we'll do a round. And the question is this: what programs and policies would you support to make Hyde Park a destination location? Now, that question came from me because I'm a Hyde Park loyalist. So I want to know specifically, what are you going to do for Hyde Park regarding programs and policies to make it really a destination location and not left behind as part of the city? So we'll start with Ricardo on that question.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear, Marcia, this is specifically for Hyde Park?
Absolutely, for Hyde Park. You
So
know me,
spec-
Hyde Park
yeah.
loyalist, yeah.
Well, I was born and raised and currently live in Hyde Park. And one of the things that we've had a hard time doing is retaining small businesses and attracting new restaurants to the community. One of the things that I worked with my colleagues, Councilor Worrell and Councilor Louis Jen on, was increasing the amount of liquor licenses available so that we could have more restaurants, ready, accessible liquor licenses for them to join in that are tied specifically to the zip code. So they're tied specifically to Hyde Park. The other thing I would like to do, it's been a focus of my 4 years here, and we finally got a study coming, is revitalizing Hyde Park Ave, specifically from an infrastructure standpoint. There's a lot of work there when it comes to bus lanes, bike lanes, and restructuring how that works. It hasn't happened in my lifetime. And so the goal is to get a study and to make real progress in infrastructure improvements to that area. The bridge was brought up. That's a state bridge. And I know that Rob Consalvo has been doing work on that, but obviously the outlying areas to make sure that we're making that better for others. The other thing I'd like to do is welcoming development that's inclusive and doesn't displace individuals, but brings with it more residents to those areas in Hyde Park Ave, specifically on parts of River Street. I think there's space and really good places to increase density so that we're tackling both our housing crisis, but bringing in more density and business space for people there. And I think those kind of multifaceted approaches are what's necessary here. And one of the things I will just leave you with is that we're working together with the administration on a squares and corridors program that should help revitalize these squares and corridors in that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean-Claude.
Hyde Park is certainly the place that I have met discriminations to the utmost back in the 70s. And I was there, I was attacked, and I've become a victim. When I first created the first newspaper around in Hyde Park, which is called Renaissance, we talked about this, and we said the only way to change Hyde Park, it's for the organizations, the businesses to really come together and bring some changes around it. And I started seeing it coming along. There is a lot of diversity in Hyde Park, but we also need to have the predecessors, those who have been there for the longest, to admit to the fact that this is a diverse community. And the voices of Hyde Park need to be heard at every angle possible to bring the resources into it, not just shoveling it into them when they are trying to do development and so on and so forth, but they have to be on the table discussing the issues and really getting what they deserve. Their voice is important in every decision is making. So therefore, I think to do anything in Hyde Park, we got to bring the people around and get it done for them so they can all be happy.
Thank you. All right, Enrique.
Thank you, Marcia. As former director of neighborhood services and now as a candidate, there's one thing I've learned, and it's that Hyde Park residents are proud of their neighborhood. And I was really happy to help with Celebrate Hyde Park, which was an amazing, amazing event. And now most recently to work with Hyde Park Main Streets to put together that Bridge Fest event that's going to happen for the next few weekends in that neighborhood. And that's what that neighborhood needs. It's that community engagement. It's to show and highlight to the rest of the city that Hyde Park is united and that Hyde Park is a fun place to be in. We also have a great opportunity in Hyde Park. There's several commuter rail stations in one neighborhood. We need to look at those lots that are available and push for development that is not only going to add more affordable units, but also just first level businesses and work with the community to figure out what is it that they need. Is it a sit-down coffee shop? Is it a Dominican restaurant, Puerto Rican, a New Haitian restaurant? Or is it a Hyde Park theater? What is it that the community wants? We need to make sure that we elevate and we communicate the voices of the residents before we move forward. But Hyde Park already has that talent. Hyde Park already has that unity. We just need a voice in the council that's going to be ready to bring those resources and increase the budget of the small businesses department so that those small businesses can have grants to work with. But Hyde Park is beautiful, and I think that it has so much potential to become a state-of-the-art neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Enrique. Jose Ruiz. You're muted, sir. Sir, you're muted.
You're on mute. Jose, you're on mute.
Okay, it's muting itself. I apologize. Anyway, before we do anything, can we talk about how do we keep the integrity of Hyde Park and its rich history? It's important that you have really frank conversations with all neighbors. Listen, there's a ton of neighbors out there that want certain things that others don't. Let's talk about the small businesses and why they don't last. Why do they go on Route 1? Well, a lot of it has to do with the lack of parking and accessibility. We know that. You know, we're going to have to discuss why these restaurants over at Cleary Square don't last for a long period of times. We need to have those hard discussions. Hyde Park, rich in history. You're looking at a person who jogs Hyde Park, and I used to jog Roslindale and Mattapan at one point when I was in those areas. And I love the history of Hyde Park. It's bird sanctuary that many people don't know exists. That the Neponset River is part of Hyde Park. The 54th Infantry is a part of Hyde Park. That there's many areas that people don't know are a part of Hyde Park that not only beautiful, but worth visiting. Why don't we all get to know Hyde Park better? And that way we can talk more about how to make it even more prideful.
Thank you so much. And now I'm turning it over to Mimi Turchinist of the Hyde Park Neighborhood Association for the next set of questions. Mimi?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Marcia. So I have one yes, no question. So you can only answer yes or no to this first question, and then a couple more questions. So the first question is, will you play a leadership role in working with the City of Boston to come up with real financial resources to be part of the payment strategy so that Crane Ledge Woods can be purchased and retained for full conservation? Yes or no? And we start with Jean-Claude. Jean-Claude, yes or no?
Unmute. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Jose?
Yes.
Okay, Ricardo? You're on mute.
Yes.
Ricardo? Yes. And Enrique?
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, the next question is, what programs or policies would you put forth to support wealth creation for traditionally marginalized communities, starting with Jose?
That is something I'm still really thinking about. That's something I really want to have a discussion with people out of the city council.
Oh, okay. Is that your answer? You're
That's
finished?
my answer.
Okay. Jean-Claude, you're next.
Yes, I will certainly work along with my colleagues and making sure that I am the defender for District 5, and bringing the resources back is certainly going to be my forte.
Okay. Enrique?
We need to give our residents options. What I realized going to school in Boston, in high school in Boston specifically, is that as a student, the only option was college. And I want to work with our labor unions to create a pipeline to give students the opportunity to pursue a vocational career. I want to make sure that students and young families have the opportunity to find a different passion for them to get a new job and to become an entrepreneur in this city. Because at the moment, I just feel like we're too concentrated on sending everyone to college. We need to make sure that families have an option and that students have an option going forward, because that's what's going to build wealth. Boston is known for a diverse city, not just because of its race or its religion, but because of its entrepreneurship. That's where we have such a strong economy right now. And we need to make sure we bring that back to give students and young families an option.
Okay, thank you. Ricardo?
Mimi, can you please just repeat the question? My internet went in and out on that.
Sure. What programs or policies would you put forth to support wealth creation for traditionally marginalized communities?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I know is a thing about immigrants and entrepreneurs in this city is that oftentimes due to the racial history and the way that policies were implemented and have been implemented in the past, that we often make our own jobs. And that requires a level of working through bureaucracy. So one of the things I would love to make sure we're doing is continuing to invest in ensuring that our small businesses are having access and receiving access to resources from us to do that. I think a second approach to that is BPS and making sure that we're investing in places like our early education from elementary to high school. I am a product of BPS, and I know that finances and how our finances work was not something that we were ever taught. It was something that people, I guess, expected us to learn from home. And that is something that I would like to make sure we take care of by ensuring that as we teach social studies and civics, and as we try to make sure that those things are being implemented in our schools, we're also teaching people about credit scores and how to make sure that they're doing what they need to do financially to build wealth. Whether that be teaching folks about Roth IRAs, which is something I didn't learn about until my 30s, but probably should have learned much earlier in my life, and making sure that people are set up in the best way that we can through programming at early ages. And then finally, for folks who have struggled with credit and things of that nature, one of the things that I support, I know our Congresswoman supports this as well, is making sure that your rent payments counts for your credit score. So that we can continue to get people into housing and continue to get people into the world of building equity and financial wealth. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Right on time. So the third question is, how will you be an environmental justice leader for sustainable, affordable housing and the needs of a healthy green neighborhoods? And the first person to take that is Ricardo.
Thank you so much. On the council, this is one of the places where I feel like the council has tried very hard to lead. We passed BERDO, then we passed BERDO 2.0. And then to make sure that we were really leading on this, Mayor Wu gave us the option of opting in to the municipal stretch code, which made sure that BERDO catches buildings on the back end. In other words, when something is developed, it has to hit certain environmental metrics. The municipal stretch code catches it on the front end. It makes sure that you actually have to build housing to those metrics. Under my leadership as chair of government operations, we passed that like 8 months earlier than the deadline to ensure that we were really leading on that and we weren't wasting time getting that implemented. When it comes to the municipal tree ordinance, the goal here is both public trees and trees that you see at schools, on the street trees, trees that you see in parks, but also private trees to ensure that we're creating protections for really trees that heritage trees and trees that people have a relationship to, but most importantly, are really vibrant like parts of our communities, and make sure that we have the environmental outcomes when it comes to heat islands and things of that matter that are being mitigated to ensure that we have a healthier community for everybody. I think all of those things go into that. When development comes before me, I usually have a checklist of things I go through. What's your affordability? How deep is your affordability in terms of AMI or area median income? Making sure that you're not coming at 90, 80% area median income, but 30, 40%, so that we actually have affordable housing. And then making sure that your housing is being built in a way that gets us to carbon zero, which I support all of our initiatives to do that and to get off of gas. Thank you.
Thank you. The next presenter, Enrique Pippin, you're on.
Yes. Amy, thank you so much for that question. In District 5, we are home to 2 of the neighborhoods with the largest tree canopy in the city. And I'm all in support of protecting that tree canopy by supporting to expand the mayor's ordinance of protecting the trees in this neighborhood and in the district in general. We need to make sure that when new developments are proposed in this district, that we look at what are the developers doing to meet carbon net zero? What are we doing to educate also the residents that we claim that we're fighting for environmental justice, but don't quite frankly understand what does that mean? My family is looking at what's happening with the environmental, with the EV vehicles, the EV chargers and solar system, and they just don't know what it means and why it's impactful. So as city councilor, not only will I push to protect the environment and support the mayor's initiative on the Green New Deal, but also to educate the residents of what's happening, to educate the families that look like mine, so they can also feel invested. because what's happening is a lack of education. I will push for more campaigning to help residents know what are we doing here in this city, because we really do have good leadership and we're ready to push forward on the Green New Deal in Boston.
Great, thank you. Jean-Claude?
Yes. We are having one of the greatest issues. It's normally during campaign time that most residents or constituents hear about the issues that are pertaining to their livelihood. But unfortunately, after we get elected, we don't continue with that education. That education needs to be continued because, like it says, I mean, the consumers who are mostly educated certainly can become better consumers. There's no doubt about it. So it is our people also. So if I'm the advocate who's representing District 5, if there is one main goal, which I have had for a lifetime, is educating the mass population in terms of knowing, first of all, their rights, knowing what are their privileges, and knowing also everything that is coming to them so that they won't be just flushed out. And there's a system here in Boston that we don't care about those who are not seeking for the information when we're not bringing it to them. So we're talking about carbon dioxide, which is certainly has to do with the health reasons. And certainly when there is no trees around, when they are being cut unfairly, it's creating a lot of danger as far as health is concerned. So why don't we take the time and really educating our people, either when we are creating policies and we are making policies and we are executing policies. I don't think folks need to learn about these things afterwards. They got to know them beforehand so they can make the perfect decisions together with us as their city councilors.
Great, thank you. And finally, Jose?
Mimi, why don't we start off this way and remind people that it used to snow in December and now it's snowing later in the year. I want to remind people that there's fires in Canada that are affecting the United States. Why don't we tell people that there's an increase in in respiratory issues among our population? I think our folks are educated, but need to be reminded of all these things. I agree with what everyone is saying here, but I think we need constant reminders and need to make some tough decisions. Folks, doesn't take a brilliant person to know that our world is changing and it's not for the better. You know, if we're having all these problems, we have to make some hard decisions, but we have to keep it simple with our folks and just reminding them that it used to snow in December and now it's later on in the year. The world is being affected by climate change. We have to make hard decisions.
Great, thank you. And so as part of the next step, I'll hand this off to Rob Orthman of Walk Up Rosendale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm proud to be here representing Walk Up Rosendale, a neighborhood organization focused not exclusively, but primarily on housing and transportation. So those will be the questions that I ask. We're going to start with housing. What specific, and I want to emphasize the word specific, what specific policies and programs will you advance to support more housing, particularly more income restricted housing in our communities? And the first we'll go to Enrique Pepin to respond.
Of course. Rob, first of all, thank you so much for being here for that question. I grew up in Boston public housing. I know the importance of having affordable rent so the family can stay in this city. And I'm ready to push for that. In Boston right now, for those of you who may not know, Boston Housing Authority actually has a fair cloth limit of 12,086 units. However, due to redevelopment in the early 2000s, they re-densified that limit, and we only have 9,622 public housing limits at the moment. We have the opportunity here to work with other city councilors, to work with the mayor, to build more BHA units. And not only the BHA units that we know from the 1900s, but state-of-the-art units that are going to give working class families with low incomes the opportunity to have a sanitary, safe place to live. People, we are short almost 3,000 units that we were given the right to build back in the 20th century. And that is now an opportunity for us to build more units. in this city.
Thank you, Enrique. Next, same question to Jose Ruiz.
Thank you for asking that question because I grew up in public housing too. And listen, there's so many public housing places that have to be addressed. And then listen, it's a great place to start, and we need to increase the units and also have opportunities for people who want to stay there, stay there. Those who live along Washington Street and the side streets make up the rich history of Rosendale, they want to stay where they're at, but we have to look at places where we can build. We know that when there's a higher supply, rent goes down, you know, and there's just not enough supply. Since there's more demand, rent is higher. We have to address that as city council. We have to look at unique, different ways to build more housing and to make sure there's housing for everybody, not just for those who don't have the means, but those who do have the means and want to stay. No one should be forgotten in the subject of housing.
Thank you. Turn the same question to Councilor Arroyo. I believe you're still muted.
Thank you. I just want to begin by saying that housing is absolutely a right, not a privilege. And to that effect, my office during COVID was one of the very first, I think possibly the first, possibly with State Rep Mike Conley, to push for a mortgage and rent moratorium to make sure that people stayed in their homes during COVID. To that end, as the chair of government operations, I led the body through the rent stabilization process in terms of getting that bill passed, and we got that through 11-2. And there was a lot of discussions and conversations to make sure that we got that through 11-2. And so I support policies like that. Specifically to development, every developer knows that you can't bring me a project that's under 20% affordable housing and have like a real conversation with me. I support the mayor's proposal to push IDP or inclusionary development policy, which is just more affordable housing units, to 17%, which is coming as a mandatory and on site. So you can't build luxury housing here and then affordable housing somewhere else, but that we're doing mixed properties. I will say that one of the things here that I think really is important is courage. Often we have conversations around parking and whether or not there'll be enough parking as opposed to enough housing for individuals who are looking for housing. And we are in a housing crisis. And what I have made clear through my actions and my deeds, whether it be projects I've supported like 4198 Washington Street or projects on Blue Hill that create more affordable housing, is that if the cost of ensuring everybody has a home and a home that they can afford is prioritizing the building of homes that come with affordable housing, I'm going to continue to do that. And I think I have a pretty good track record of fighting for renters' rights, homeowners, and ensuring that development is done in a way that discourages displacement. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Jean-Claude Sanon, the same question, please.
Thank you, sir. Boston is currently facing a housing shortage. There is no issue about it because a lot of people are driving out because of rent prices, etc. However, this problem does not just affect the residents, as families that have lived in the city for decades find it increasingly harder to stay in their own homes. And I have friends who have just really gone out astray on this whole issue. The base of the issue is that the fact new residents are more willing to leave a neighborhood that were historically home to lower income families living in less expensive housing. These communities includes Mattapan, certainly, which is where I'm at, and Hyde Park, as well as Rosendale. But we need to have working with various community organizations to develop solutions to this worsening problem, from instituting restricted houses, built more rent-controlled houses on the city lots of the city of Boston. If the solution is there and the people are suffering, why don't we call to respond to their demands and really execute the order? That way, we want to talk about people are leaving Boston, and so on and so forth, and it's only being built for those who can afford it. That's unfair practice.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a brief follow-up on housing, and we're going to go in the same order, and then we'll reverse it for the next question on transportation. I'd like this to be a yes, no, if possible. If you're going to say a couple words, please, so we respect time. As it relates to housing, yes, no. Do you support rent control and or rent stabilization in some form? And I will go to Enrique Pepin first.
Yes.
Thank you. To Jose Ruiz.
Yes, let's keep all the laws in mind when we have this discussion.
Thank you. Ricardo Arroyo.
Yes, absolutely.
and Jean-Claude Sanon?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thank you for all being brief and to the point. Turning to transportation. Some of you touched briefly on some of the transportation issues we have in District 5 as well as citywide. What specific steps would you take to improve transportation in District 5? And I'd like to ask you to answer that in part and talk about Hyde Park Avenue a little bit, which stretches across almost the entirety of the district. That question will go in reverse order. So Jean-Claude Sanon, I will go to you first.
Well, there's no doubt that we have the worst traffic problem. And with the transportation's issues, with the new bridge that has been closed for the longest, it made it even worse. I stand in that corner and I wave at people in the morning going to work. And even though the bridge is closed, it's still frustrating. So we have to provide more access as far as buses is concerned and make it a little bit more reliable for the people to really get there. So I think a new study needs to be made before this bridge is open. We got to look at all the avenue and all the possibilities as far as how, after the study, how we can differentiate the problem that we are navigating right now, because it's getting worse and worse as years goes by. And not unless we sit down and really review it and do a study plan and really talk about it and come up with something new that will help out all the residents of Hyde Park, we're still going to be on the same loop.
Thank you. Same question to Ricardo Arroyo.
Thank you. I'm going to try and go throughout the district. So on Washington Street, there was recently a move to increase, or rather lengthen, the bus lane that my office played a key role in. I want to thank the constituents who also advocated and made that something that we could get done. And so Washington Street has had sort of the most improvements when we talk about the district as a whole from main corridors out. Hyde Park Ave is something I've been fighting for since literally being elected 3 years ago. And so with Hyde Park Ave, most recently, we got funding through a grant to do a study of Hyde Park Ave. And when you think about Hyde Park Ave, it's essentially 3 different zones because there's different lengths and widths of Hyde Park Ave going all the way down to Reedville Station. And so making sure that we have a plan that incorporates that. There's sort of right up by Forest Hills, there's that Hyde Park Ave, then there's in the middle of by where you come off to where Crane Ledge is. And so there's a number of different parts of Hyde Park Ave, and making sure that that study is incorporating all of the different things that are sort of able and possible based on the width and length of that space. My office participated in a safety walkthrough through Hyde Park Ave to make sure that we were addressing pedestrian safety and putting in new crosswalks and changing sort of stoplights to make sure that we were prioritizing the health and safety of pedestrians through that stretch. And I want to talk about Blue Hill Ave as well. That's something that has a lot of money coming to do an entirely brand new central bus lane on Blue Hill Ave. I support that. I think that's working its way through community process, and I look forward to helping guide that. And I will just say, finally, River Street, the city does a lot for streets that bring people to downtown, but not a lot for streets that connect our district and our neighborhoods. And I want to make sure we're focusing on strengthening those streets as well.
Same question on transportation to Jose Ruiz.
I grew up wanting 4 things: a car, a motorcycle, a bicycle, and a T-Pass, because we were well-rounded. There's been so much money spent over so many decades to address our traffic issue, and it's been money poorly spent as far as I'm concerned, because we just have not come up with the right solution. Here's a suggestion. Why don't we try conditioning our folks? Why don't we make it, why don't we try other plans to condition people to get away less from their cars, use their bicycles, get on public transportation? Why don't we try those efforts? Traffic has been an issue here in Boston for many, many years. I don't know any study that's going to fix it, but we have to address it with our people. So why don't we try something new? Why don't we try conditioning our folks?
And to Enrique Pepin.
Of course. About 3 years ago, I was working with Transportation for Massachusetts as their community engagement director. And I was able to be part of a coalition called Transit is Essential, where we stopped the MBTA from cutting services during COVID. And I was also part of that initiative where we made the 28 bus free from Mattapan Square to Ruggles Station. What I learned from that study and learned from seeing the ridership of that bus and of the 23 bus and of the 19 bus is that people ride the bus when it's free. So as a city councilor for District 5, I will extend the fare free bus program to the 34 bus and the 32 bus in this district. Because what happens is that when you give an option for residents to ride on a fare-free bus, they're going to use it. We also, in regards to Hyde Park Avenue, it's a dangerous street. About 4 years ago, my mom actually was in an accident on Hyde Park Ave, turning onto Cummins Highway. And it was because of a blind spot. And that showed me that cars are speeding down that street. There's too much speeding going on, not only on Hyde Park Ave, but also on Blue Hole Ave. We need to make sure that we create a safe approach for all modes of transportation. If it's either by decreasing the lanes to add a bike lane or a bus lane, but making sure that everyone's safe, because it's the safety of riders, of pedestrians, and car riders is too important for everyone. That's what I would do.
Thank you all for your answers. I'm going to now hand it off to Cecily Graham of the Ward 18 Democratic Committee.
Thank you, Rob. Now I will have one long question, 2 yes or no questions, and a short answer question. Okay, starting with the long question. In 2022, almost 75% of Boston's revenue came from property taxes, but half of Boston's land is tax exempt. To address this problem, then Mayor Menino created the Payment in Lieu of Taxes pilot program, requesting large nonprofit hospitals, educational and cultural institutions with over 15 million in property to pay 25% of their assessed property tax to reimburse the city for vital services, snow removal, fire and police protection, and sanitation. Half of that assessment can be fulfilled through provision of a community benefit. Each year, fewer institutions pay their full pilot fee. And in the last 12 years, institutions have failed to pay the city. Are you still not hearing me?
No, you're good.
You're good.
We can hear you. You're good. Keep going. We can hear you.
Okay. Each year. So you have to be in the English room. Can someone else say that?
I cannot hear him either. Yeah, we can't hear Cecily. Everyone cannot hear you, Cecily.
No, I can't hear Cecily.
No, you have to be.
So I had this issue earlier. If you go to the part where you choose a language, if you choose English, then you'll hear Cecily.
There's a globe on the bottom of the screen next to the share screen option. And just click on that and you'll see the options, choose English.
Can you hear me now?
I would say
No,
continue.
I'm wondering if we are having a problem because Esther came in on Cecily's link. And therefore, maybe Cecily, the system is coding you as an interpreter and not part of the English room. I don't know.
Got it. Okay,
Go to
so
the
there
English
could be
channel,
that mix
Cecily.
up there. So I will do my best as I'm asking the question to re-enter and come in as in another email.
So how about if I ask this first question and that
Got it.
gives you time to ask, to write,
Yeah.
do whatever you need to do.
Got it.
And, okay, so I'm going to put me on spotlight. There we are. Okay, and you're off. All right, I'm Rachel Polliner from Progressive West Roxbury Roslindale. Happy to take this question. So if you didn't hear it, I better start at the beginning. In 2022, almost 75% of Boston's revenue came from property taxes, but half of Boston's land is actually tax exempt. To address this problem, Mayor Menino, another person coming in, Mayor Menino created the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program called Pilot, requesting that large nonprofit hospitals, educational and cultural institutions, that's universities, museums, if they have over 15 million in property, not if they're small, that they would be assessed 25% of what they would have paid in regular taxes because they're getting city services, snow removal, police protection, fire, sanitation, all of that. Half of the assessment would be allowed to be fulfilled through money, right? And the other half of that 25% through community benefits. Each year, fewer institutions have been paying their full pilot fee. In the last 12 years, institutions have failed to pay the city over 175 million in pilot fees. So the question is, how will you work to create a stronger pilot system and expand community engagement, define community benefits, and create a reasonable tax base? First on this one is Ricardo.
Thank you for this question. Our richest institutions that use so much of our resources but give very little back to our communities in the form of payment really do need to step it up. This is something that I've been a champion with other counselors. My council colleagues are usually pretty good when it comes to payment in lieu of taxes, because we all understand that these institutions are using our resources, whether they be garbage disposal, security, our emergency services, but they're not paying into those systems. And so they're a drain on our resources without providing those resources. Granted, these institutions we love our higher institutions of learning and our hospitals, but they should pay their fair share. Many people on this call have seen an increase in their property taxes. And these institutions have their payment in lieu of taxes based on their property taxes. One of the things that I was happy to be a part of was making sure that we updated their property tax assessments. So the property tax assessments that were being used to determine payment in lieu of taxes were based on property assessments that were done almost 2 decades ago. We were able to get those updated, and now their payment in lieu of taxes should change to reflect what their actual property taxes would be now today. And so that is something that I'm leading on. Separately, I have always advocated that the funding that comes back from payment in lieu of taxes should go into our educational system. They should go to Boston Public Schools to ensure that we are creating the infrastructure and resources that our schools need to succeed and thrive. And so that's another part of that. And then lastly, 75% of our tax base is property taxes. The state controls the ability to do things like sales tax or income tax, which New York does, for instance, as a city. So one of the things that I've supported is a transfer tax fee for people who are flipping properties to pay on transfer taxes, a vacancy tax to make sure that people who are buying properties and not living in them are paying taxes as well to the community because they're holding up housing stock. So there are different ways to generate income, and payment in lieu of taxes is an important one I'll continue to fight for. Thank you.
Okay, and we're moving to Jean-Claude.
You know what is so funny, Rachel, is that the fact is the little people always get to be penalized and the big guys get away with murder all the time. And we, as far as government, we're not doing our jobs toward them, okay? When this program came about, I remember you guys call it payment in lieu. It's actually payment in lieu, which is the French terminology of it. So instead of, but however, you know what I found to be so funny is that how could, after all these years, on the clock of the government, these institutions have been getting away with murder. We haven't done anything about it at all. But if it was the little people, they'll be paying the consequences. So there is total bias right there for me as far as I'm concerned. But I think another method to be used is that the fact that not only they must pay, but they have also to contribute, especially if it's school institutions. They got to give back to the community in terms of helping us with the kids in schools and so on and so forth with different programs. So somewhere along the line, I think we need to do a little bit of compromising, both with the money and the services that will benefit the community in return, and really put a penalty on them if they are not obeying or living by the rules as it should be, because they are draining our system.
All right, Enrique is next.
Thank you, Rachel. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that Boston is rich in its hospitals and universities and nonprofit organizations. But unfortunately, they do continue to get away with benefiting from tax-exempt bond financing and they also receive charitable contributions that are tax deductible from donors. And as city councilor, I will work with my colleagues to hold those organizations accountable by drafting and advocating for legislation that will set floor payment plans to give back to the community. It's the same issue that I saw as director of neighborhood services with big developer firms. They promise community benefits. Oh, we're going to build this beautiful building on Hyde Park Avenue, but no one's holding them accountable when they're giving back to the neighborhood. So we need to build some sort of accountability system inside City Hall so that when these hospitals and universities and big development firms are going up and they're proposing a new project or They're just simply not being held accountable. And I just think that that money needs to go back to the community one way. Too many of our residents are struggling with medical debt, with college loans. It's a national issue. And I think that it's time for us to hold them accountable. And I would be a champion for that.
And Jose?
Yeah, listen, directly, partnerships cannot be fair in theory. They have to be fair in reality. I love our universities here, but they don't give their fair share. Many of our universities impede on several neighborhoods. We know that. That impacts housing. Our hospitals are the best in the world. I get it. I understand. My family has benefited from many of the hospitals. Partnerships have to be real. Partnerships have to be transparent. If you're giving me something, everybody should know what it is, all right? Whether it's snow removal, garbage removal, or anything like that. But I also know a lot of people as a homeowner that we pay way too much in property taxes. Fairness across the board for everybody. And if you're not paying your fair amount of taxes, then everybody should know what it is you're giving. Partnerships should not be fair in theory. They should be fair in reality. Maybe it really does take courage on a city council level to be those leaders, to make sure it's in reality and not in theory.
Okay, I'm going to bring Cece back, and we are going to see if we can hear her correctly.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I will take myself off, and there you go.
Alrighty, my next question will be a yes or no question. Would you support reallocating a portion of police funding to prevention and social supports? Yes or no question, starting with Jean-Claude.
Yes.
Jose,
No.
Ricardo,
Yes, and as a counselor, I've done this.
Enrique,
Yes.
thank you. The next question is another yes or no question. Sorry, there's something blocking this question here. There we go. Do you support having traffic details moved from the police contract to civilian flaggers? This is a yes or no question, starting with Jose.
No.
Jean-Claude,
I'll say yes.
Enrique,
Yes.
Ricardo.
Yes.
For my last question, short answer question, name 3 strategies you would propose to reduce gun violence, starting with Enrique.
I would just like to start with acknowledging the fact that we were just impacted by this a week ago, as one of the other candidates said, and it's getting out of hand. We're lucky to live in a state like Massachusetts where we have strong gun laws that make it difficult for our residents to purchase a weapon. But I think that what we need to focus on is, one, educating our youth. We need to be a little bit more vocal in PPS about the importance of bringing down violence. We need to make sure that they understand that violence isn't always the answer, and that starts at a very young age. Because look what happened last week. It was a 13-year-old. How about next week? What's going to happen in this city if we don't take an approach now? I'm also a big fan of the community service officers of the Boston Police Department. And I think that we need to elevate their work so that they build a strong connection with the residents to bring safety to the neighborhoods.
Ricardo.
Thank you. I believe everybody should be safe in their neighborhood, whether they're going to school, going to the store, just playing outside. And for too many, that hasn't been true. I've done a few things on this regard. So the first is I've pushed for more money, and I've actually overridden the mayor using our new council budget in both budgets to increase youth jobs and making sure that we're giving people opportunities to bring home money and to make sure that people are, especially our youth, are given opportunities to learn trades and to learn actual pathways into successful careers, but also to make sure that they're in safe places during the day. Secondly, we have a real crisis with mental health in our country and the fact that we don't analyze it. I myself have had experiences with mental health in which I've sought help. And I know that for many people, just admitting that or seeking help is stigmatized in such a way that we have to make sure, especially for communities of color, especially for those on a socioeconomic disenfranchised communities, that they are receiving those services. And if the city has to provide those and ensure they're provided, that they are. And then finally, I've fought for and I've advocated for a unit dedicated specifically to non-fatal shootings and solving non-fatal shootings. Studies have shown that if you focus on non-fatal shootings, you prevent fatal shootings in the future. And I've advocated for that as well.
Jose.
You said three. First one, education. People need to be educated about firearms and the devastating effects that it has. I'm probably the only person here that's put so many people into a hole as a result to gun violence. Second one is repercussions. You know, we have a strong gun law on it, and a lot of times it's not enforced at a court level. And then the last one is just responsibility. We have to continue to stay on gun manufacturers. We just have to. There's just too many firearms out there. Fireworks are illegal, but people still go out of state to get them, right? Firearms are difficult to get here in Massachusetts, so you travel a few states over and you get them. Education, responsibility, those things are really, really important.
Jean-Claude.
When our babies are dying, guess what? We are all responsible. There's no issue about it. We can't just put the blame on somebody. We got to take the blame for all of us as far as adults are concerned. And unfortunately, the homework is not done properly. We don't do the educations. And we need to bring also the police department into the community to really do that educations with the people. To me, it's important. They have used the weapon, they understood it, they can explain it much better to the folks. And sometimes we're not taking the expert in to really do the work. As far as I'm concerned, beside education, safety is certainly one of the #1 element for us to live a good life. But if we are not really putting emphasis on it, or the money behind it, and so on and so forth, we are in deep trouble. And we are not the only one. As far as the manufacturing are concerned, we must hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes my section. I will hand it off to Kathy Horn of Keep Hyde Park Beautiful.
Thank you, Cecily, and welcome candidates. Thanks for being here. My first question is, the city of Boston is striving to be a model of climate action and sustainability. What, if any, gaps do you see in the city's plan, and how would you address those gaps? And first up is Jose.
Well, I'm glad. What's the name of your group again? It's awesome.
Keep Hyde Park Beautiful.
You're doing a phenomenal job, so keep it up. So first and foremost, I still want to be able to talk about climate change and how it affects our beaches. We had some of the most beautiful weeks after a whole bunch of months of rain, and we couldn't even go in the water some of our beaches that we generally travel outside of the city of Boston. Climate, again, as I said before, it doesn't snow in December anymore. I want snow back in December. We have to address it. So I would address, climate change just by talking about how our water is increasing in height and what you call it, and also having a tree program that's sustainable and just educating people about the importance of climate change.
Thank you. Enrique?
Hey, Kathy. Thank you so much for that question, and thank you for the work you do for keeping Hyde Park beautiful. For me, it's understanding. It's understanding why we just had the hottest streak of days in the city of Boston and around the entire country. It's about understanding what is happening to our environment. Because at the moment, I don't think people, quite frankly, know what's going on. We have amazing organizations, nonprofits in this city that are doing the work, but I'm all about educating the residents that aren't as involved in that decision making. So I think that we need to take a step back. We need to educate our residents. We need to do a full-blown campaign about what we're trying to accomplish in this city when we're building more sustainable housing, where we're putting in more EV chargers in our neighborhoods, so that they know why we're doing that, not just what we're doing, but why. That's the key for this environmental piece.
Jean-Claude?
Climate change, very vulnerable elements, but sometimes we are in such a denial and we really don't want to discuss it fully. And especially since there are two sides to it, and some people are trying to do the brainwash more than others. But as the climate continues to change, three major climate hazards will increasingly impact Boston. Extreme heat, which we're about to face right now, which we are facing right now, stormwater flooding, and coastal and riverine flooding. These elements are real and soon will be in our borders. But however, I admire that the fact that you're saying keeping Hyde Park beautiful, because it's probably one of the most beautiful places around the three parts of the district. But education is the element number one that we need to do. And unfortunately, when we start educating, we have a seasons for educations. Education should not have a seasons. It should be an ongoing, because we have new people arriving here in this country all the time that needs to learn more about what's going on. And if they are not educated, guess what? It won't be good at all as far as the climate change education is concerned. So we have to do that, and we must do it for everybody.
Thank you. And Ricardo?
Thank you. We only have one Earth, and we are on a clock, unfortunately, that is moving quite rapidly in terms of our ability to really impact global climate change and things that are happening. And so there are a couple places that I believe that we really should have been working on things yesterday. One of those is rising water or sea tides. If folks remember Hurricane Sandy and what that did to New Jersey, Boston has at times had real concerns that we have been blessed to not have to have experienced, but there's a real concern about our vulnerability to a sea storm or to a hurricane of that nature, and what that could do to the downtown area and to Boston as a city. And so advancing and moving towards a sea plan or a rising seafront plan. I would also say getting us to clean renewable energy and really stepping up our efforts to do that, whether that's supporting that. If folks are on their computers right now, which of course you are, you might be on a phone. We have the Boston Community Choice Electricity Program, which will save you money on your bill. But if you actually go there and shift over to the Boston Community Choice Electricity, not only will you have a cheaper bill, but there's an option to make sure that you are getting 100% clean renewable energy. And so continuing to promote policies and programs like that. And then increasing the electrification. I have an electric vehicle at home. It has changed my life in a number of different ways. And making sure that we continue to make electric vehicles and the city fleet. We just got new school buses, but making sure that the city fleet and the state fleet of MBTA buses makes those shifts and that we have an infrastructure to support that. And finally, planting more trees throughout the city as a whole. We're blessed in our community to experience that, but there are really parts of the city as a whole that don't and should have an extra effort to do that, including parts of our own. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, my next question is a simple yes or no. As many of you know, litter is a big problem in the city of Boston and in Hyde Park. Many cities and states have comprehensive anti-littering campaigns that include not only cleanup efforts, but also litter prevention, education, and enforcement. Would you advocate for that kind of comprehensive citywide campaign in Boston? And Ricardo, you're first.
Thank you. Absolutely. One of the things that thanks to the work of Keep Hyde Park Beautiful, that was able to pick up 10,000 miniature singles in like less than 3 months, which is a ridiculous number. I've been advocating to push towards preventing those from being a part of our ecosystem and being sort of these single-use recyclable that can't even be recycled. They break our machines, bottles out of our system and out of our streets, increasing education, increasing access to trash cans, and sort of making sure that we are moving forward with recycling and compost programs are all things that I'm doing. And one thing similar to this is we waste about 1 million tons of food in Massachusetts as a whole. My proposal to the municipal food waste ban essentially would ensure that food is not being wasted and thrown into the garbage or thrown into compost. If it's still edible, it should be going to hungry people. We have a large amount of residents in this. It's probably the second or third thing I receive phone calls on in my office on a daily basis, making sure that we are not just stopping littering in a street corner on your park, which I am an advocate for, and I'm trying to find policies to address the smaller sort of bottles and things like that, but also making sure that our corporations and our big supermarkets and all of these hospitals and colleges aren't just throwing away food or throwing things into our waste and into our ecosystem in a way that impacts all of us. So that's the work that I'm doing legislatively, but also work that I'm doing from a constituent standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought it was a yes or no question, but it looks like everyone has.
Sorry, I didn't hear the yes or no part. Yes.
Oh, it's
I'm
fine.
so
but
sorry.
No, it looks like you had 90 seconds. And so I'm going to give everybody else 90 seconds. And next up is Enrique.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. That is an obvious yes. The one thing I've noticed about Boston is that when I travel to different cities, I've been to Cincinnati, New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles. Compared to Boston, they are messy. And Boston is the cleanest city. And I'm just not saying that because it's my home, but because it's of the beautiful work that our city departments do. I see public works department trucks out there every day picking up trash in our barrels. I see our Hokies picking up trash in downtown Boston and in different parts of the city. So I think it's important to keep funding those departments and don't cut any of those budgets from those departments, because quite frankly, they're the ones that keep this city clean. And I think that we should also keep elevating city initiatives such as Love Your Block. Love Your Block is probably one of the best initiatives that the city has implemented, because not only does it keep the city clean, but it brings residents together and it creates a sense of investment to say, you know what, I'm going to clean my home neighborhood. I'm going to clean my street with my neighbors because this is where I live. And I think that we need to keep pushing that forward and keep advocating for it to show residents why Boston is the beautiful city that we live in today. And that's what I will do.
Great. Jean-Claude?
Throughout my traveling path, I have been to Europe and I've seen how clean it is. Clean that if your food fall on the floor, you might be willing to pick it up and eat it. And it always bothered me to see how United States, especially the city of Boston where I live, is in such a bad shape. You mentioned Hyde Park being so bad. Mattapan is probably the worst out of the entire district. But again, we got to make the people proud of where they live. And I think it's throughout education. We can create a momentum that would encourage everybody to do so. So that way it will not be just the work of the public works. Because can you imagine after the truck passes by and the next guy that comes along just drop his things onto the floor? And having constituents calling up on each other to really do the job of keeping the city clean the way it should be. Because the cleaner it is, the healthier that we are all going to be. And the cleaner it is, more people will be interested in it also to come by and visit. Because you cannot have a square, what you call a square, whether it's Mattapan Square or Clary Square, for it to be in the worst shape possible. It will affect the businesses. People would not want to come around and really hang around. And it's a lose and lose situations. So we need to do a win-win situations by trying to educate the people, get them to be proud of the neighborhood, and really participate in that cleanup process together with the public works.
Thank you. And Jose?
You cannot say you're a prideful person if you don't pick up your neighborhood. I commit every day to picking up garbage somewhere. That's my participation. I work out with a group of people at 6 in the morning, and when I jog or work out in the different parks here in Hyde Park or in other places, if there's trash on the ground, I pick it up and throw it in the barrel. I worked at the Parks Department for 6 years as an administrator. I worked at the Blackstone Community Center for 12 years. I had left there as the executive director. I organized community cleanups because they were important to me. But most importantly, I lead by example. I hope that I could be the example in the city council to remind people, what is Boston pride? Well, part of being Boston Pride is having a clean city.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Rachel Polliner of Progressive West Rocks and Roslindale.
Thank you. And I have to say, I'm so delighted that we still have more than 130 people here and people are really engaged. So I've got 3 questions left. You can last, everybody can last, 2 of which are yes, no. And then we'll have closing statements, okay? So first one, yes, no. And that's why you see a blue screen there instead of the timer. All right, I'm gonna ask the government questions. Do you support ranked choice voting in municipal elections? Do you support ranked choice voting in municipal elections? First, Jean-Claude.
No, I don't.
Okay, Ricardo.
Yes, and I've campaigned for it.
Jose,
Yes.
Enrique.
Yes, we need to give people choices.
Okay, another yes, no question. Do you support allowing non-citizens with legal status the right to vote in municipal elections? This time I will start with Jose.
Undecided. Still need more info.
Okay, Enrique,
They pay taxes. Yes.
Jean-Claude,
I have been on the forefront fight on this, so it's a yes.
okay, and Ricardo.
My father introduced the first legislation, I believe, for this in the early 2000s. So absolutely, yes, this is something I'm continuing to advocate for.
Okay, and now a real question. Okay, Boston has a strong mayor system, as we know, but city councilors are elected to their own body. You're not a city department. So the question is, what are examples of the mayor's policies, the administration's policies that you'd support, and what would that support look like? And what are examples where you'd push even farther or maybe even against the mayor? And what would that pushback look like? So, right, we're trying to have a government that's both collaborative, but also it's not just subservient. Okay, so first on this one is Enrique.
Rachel, that's a great question. I think that what's important here is the process of democracy. I think that we're very lucky to have the system that we do have in Boston. And quite frankly, we are very lucky to have the first ever elected woman mayor. But as city councilor, I look forward to not only work alongside the administration, but also with my colleagues inside City Hall. What's happening right now, there's too much inner fighting. There's no collaboration, and that's hurting the residents of the district. We need, if elected as city councilor, when elected as city councilor, I'm looking to hold the mayor accountable to push the policies that are going to help the residents of Boston, and also stand against her if I don't think it's going to serve this district well. Because at the end of the day, it's about collaboration and it's about listening to one another about what's best for the people of District 5. I want to work with my city council colleagues to make sure that we are working together to actually come up with a solution. But quite frankly, I don't think that that's what's happening right now inside that city council chamber.
Okay, Jose.
I wanted to go first in the worst way. First and foremost, the city council has to be a check to the mayor's, balance. You have quasi departments in the city of Boston that need help, like the Boston Public Health Commission, where I was assigned for 4 years. Massive malnear is a real concern, a real topic, and everyone in the city of Boston should be talking about it and thinking about it. The BPPDA, our future is always in their hands, right? They're the ones that collect information and try to see our future. The school committee is appointed by the mayor, right? So our successes of our future with our young people really rests in the shoulders of the mayor. Is that good enough for us? Is that good enough for the leaders on the city council? I have no problem pushing the mayor to be the best mayor she could be, because I'll be with her when the time comes. And then I will be the person that pricks her a little bit when I think it's lacking. I think that we have different things to address, and I'm willing to be a worthy partner, but I'm also willing to be that person that advocates for change when we're not on the same page.
Ricardo.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying there's obviously a lot more that I agree with the mayor than disagree on, but I do have a proven record of pushing her further, whether that be fighting for more participatory budgeting for individuals and more access and power for people in the participatory budgeting process, whether that be pushing for more funding from our police department, which is at somewhere around like $400 million going towards sort of making sure that we're dealing with social workers and improving access to community programming that actually reduces violence in a different way and in a healthy way for our communities, and making sure that places that have been underfunded, I've certainly pushed there. And then a school committee, pushing for a fully elected school committee. I was open to a hybrid, but that is a situation where I believe that giving our communities the ability and the power of the ballot and democratizing our school committee, where we are the only municipality that does not elect our own, I pushed for that as well. And I will just say, I've heard mention of, discohesion on the council. And I just want to address that really quickly. This isn't a problem of personalities. This is a problem of politics. There's a very conservative wing and there's a progressive wing on the council. Almost every vote that we do passes 9-4. That's what it is. And I've gotten things done with that council where we have worked with the more conservative sect to get rent stabilization passed 11-2. And there have been other issues where we're 9-4. I make no apologies for fighting for policy that I believe improves the lives of people of this city, especially people who have not been seen or heard. And when my colleagues disagree politically, you can have those disagreements politically without being personal. You will see I've never personally attacked anybody on that council. You won't find it. We work together collaboratively where it makes sense for our communities, and almost every vote is 9-4, if not more. Thank you.
Okay, Jean-Claude.
I've never worked for any institutions where I would like to be in the positions as what you have just asked earlier. In other words, I am not working for any government. It's not any institution that's going to put me into office. It's going to be the constituents. So therefore, I have to respond to them on a daily basis. If a proposal is being made and the plan looks good for my folks that I'm representing, I will certainly stand by the mayor's decisions. But when it's not, I'm going to be standing my ground because I have to respond to the people. You are not sending me in just to be a puppet inside of City Hall. You are sending me to be an advocate on your behalf, and I intend to do so and to be so. Because the marginalized have been victim for the longest, okay? The most vulnerable have been victim for the longest. They need real representation, and that's what I intend to bring at City Hall.
All right. I have a couple of little comments here, which is, first of all, thank you to all the candidates for being with us tonight. It's not always easy finding a night that works for everybody. Thank you to all the community organizations. It's been a blast organizing this with you. Thank you to everybody who stuck around all night, and to our interpreters who have been with us all night. The preliminary election is on September 12th, which will narrow this field to 2 candidates. And on that note, closing statements. First up, Ricardo.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for making this possible, and for everybody who's engaged. This matters deeply to you, and it matters deeply to me. I care very much what happens in our community and our city moving forward. I have fought very hard to ensure that policy and legislation is getting pushed through the council that has actually uplifted our communities and made it safer, stronger, and healthier for people who are going to our schools, living in our communities, commuting on our streets, and making sure that we are moving forward in a way that is inclusive of all of our neighborhoods and centering justice and equity at everything that we do. We have done a remarkable job together at advancing that. And I'm asking for all of you to continue to entrust in me this responsibility to do this work. For those of you who already support me, I'm very grateful to you. For those of you who are watching and paying attention and hoping that I can earn your support as we move forward, know that this matters to me more than it matters, frankly, at least as much as it matters to anybody else, making sure that we get this right, making sure that we get a future for our children, a future for our city, and that we continue to keep the gains that we have fought so hard for in the face of regressive movements. Thank you.
Enrique.
Thank you so much for the listeners who gave us their time tonight, and to the organizers who organized this amazing forum. Thank you for the questions as well. Being a district councilor for me wouldn't be a job. It would be my life, because this city has given my family so much. And this district is now raising my kids. This is where I'm decided to build a home. And I'm ready to serve as your city councilor to continue to push for those policies that make our city that great city we live in, but to also be the counselor that you can call for any problem, no matter how big or how small it is. Whether we're advocating for a new development project in Hyde Park, or if we're advocating to fill up a pothole in Rosendale. I'm going to be that person for you because this is my home. This is what I've been doing in my professional career, and I want to be the city council member that you can depend on in District 5. I ask for your vote on September 12th. Thank you so much.
Jean-Claude.
Yes, no seats belong to anyone in particular. That we must understand. The seats belongs to the people, and it's going to be your choice on September 12th. I have been there for the past 40 years, not as an elected official, but as somebody who has delivered constituent services. Whenever they can't find one of you, they call upon me, and I try to find one of you. I have helped put a lot of people into office, but I'll tell you, I have a lot of dissatisfactions. So this is one of the reasons for which I'm running. And I'm running because our future is at stake. Only together can we make the change that our communities in need with real representations by the people's candidate, and that candidate is me. As your servant, I'll make a difference if you give me a chance. I will be the unifying voice of the voiceless, as it was already suggested of me a while back. I will be the leader to turn District 5 as the best district, the city with your support, and as your servant, I will work my hardest to turn this into reality, but only in solidarity. At our revolutions, our aim is to change politics in Boston, and together we can win. In order to continue this work, we need you. Join us on this journey by electing Jean-Claude Sanin on September the 12th. Thank you.
Okay, Jose, you get the last word.
Oh, I hardly ever get the last word. I want to thank everybody for tonight. This was phenomenal. You did a great job of getting it together. I really want to be your city council. I believe in democracy. I believe in choices. I believe that everybody should be an educated voter. If you check our resumes, if you check our body of work over a long period of time, you're going to find out that I'm a really, really, really good choice. Wherever I've gone, I've left a legacy of success, whether it's creating nonprofits, whether it's running or working with young people, whether it's presently mentoring people who want to get into first responders. Jean-Claude spoke about the Mattapan miracle. You're talking to one of the persons who actually got it together. When Hyde Park baseball was lacking many years ago, I brought Hyde Park baseball back. Rosendale, I'll never forget the year and a half I lived over in the Archdale project and used to jog up to Rossi Square to play ball and meet my new neighbors. I'm committed. I believe I'm the right choice. I hope you select me on September 12th.
All right. Thank you all for participating tonight. Thanks to Kent for doing all the timing. Thanks to all of our questioners. And I'm going to see if I know how to turn off recording.